There is a ton of blog posts and YouTube videos out there about how to find freelance clients, but this video is going to share with you how to do it fast, because I know when I first started as a freelancer, I was unemployed and the unemployment checks were running out. So I didn't need to just know how to find freelance clients. I needed to do it fast. I did not have the time to build a personal brand online or to work for free. The fastest way to land high-paying freelance clients is through cold pitching. That is how the most successful freelance writers that I speak to have found their clients and got their start and got their foot in the door. So this video isn't just going to be about me telling you like, hey, it's time to cold pitch, here's a template, go spray and pray, because that's actually the opposite of what I want. As somebody who used to be in sales and as someone who also receives a ton of cold pitches per day, I think the world would be a better place if we just stopped sending bad cold pitches. Also, when there's horrible pitches floating around online, it really makes it harder for everybody else because clients just become jaded and they tend to breeze by pitches because they assume everyone is going to be terrible versus personalized, which is the approach that I teach. So you're doing a service to everybody if you learn how to do this correctly and stop annoying clients. So instead, I'm going to show you the differences between the freelancers who stay stuck complaining that they don't have enough work and the freelancers who are fully booked to the point where they're now looking to outsource their work because they just have too much work. I started paidcopywriter.com because I wanted to teach other people how to transition out of their 9-to-5, their unfulfilling 9-to-5, to a full-time freelance career where they call their own shots, where they are working for themselves, doing work that's fulfilling to them. And it's based on the exact approach that I took to free myself from being a 9-to-5 worker for basically my entire working life to becoming self-employed. And the reason why my approach to cold pitching is a little bit different than the advice you'll see out there is because I used to cold pitch, knock on doors, cold call for a living. So it really allowed me to build up this skill set that I'm going to teach you. And because I'm a bit introverted, because I like writing, those years that I spent as a salesperson climbing the ranks in a corporate job, I really felt like I was wasting my life, that my life had not gone in the direction that I wanted it to go. But now looking back, the fact that I'm here talking to you and teaching this skill, God had me exactly where He wanted me to be, acquiring a skill set that I would eventually use to free myself, but then go on to help other people do the same. So this is really meaningful to me. I know that you can change your life by freeing yourself from an unfulfilling job, and that there is so much at stake when it comes to enjoying the work we do and doing it well. And that's why this channel exists. Okay, when I first started freelancing, I was kind of in a bubble. I had watched a few YouTube videos, but I didn't know Facebook groups were a thing. So I wasn't being influenced by what other people were saying and what other people were advising. I just did what I knew how to do as a sales rep. And then once I gained this full roster of clients, I was busy, I was booked up, I was hitting my 5K months that I had set out to make. I did wind up discovering Facebook groups and Slack groups and forums. And as I was reading through the advice being given, one thing became really clear was that no one really understood cold pitching and how to do it effectively, like how to actually cut through the noise and grab someone's attention and how to turn that initial cold message into a paying freelance opportunity. And I noticed that people were relying on cold emailing and letters of introduction, but there was no rhyme or reason to it. There was no strategy. It was just like, hey, here's this method of emailing, this template, go out and email as many people as you can. It was like we called it in sales, spray and pray versus being strategic. And that's when it hit me. I had this huge advantage because I had been taught so many different ways to start profitable conversations with clients and get them to eventually do business with me. Of course, when I learned this, it was to do business with another company. Of course, I got commission and salary, but it wasn't on my own behalf. So when I became a freelancer, I was a little nervous because I'm like, ooh, well, I've been doing cold outreach on behalf of companies and getting opportunities for other companies, but now I'm selling myself. So it's a little bit awkward and makes me super nervous, but it still works. The difference between a good cold pitch and a bad pitch is being able to send someone a message when they're scrolling through their inbox, they stop and actually read your message, that you know how to position yourself and say the right words that touch on their exact pain points and what they're looking for in that moment, and that they want to give you a chance. And this helps you skip the whole song and dance of getting on Upwork and bidding for all these jobs and competing on a really saturated platform, or building a personal brand online, getting on social media and writing informational content and hoping that you show up in somebody's algorithm and that they're interested in your work and they like what you're saying and they message you. That's the whole building a personal brand thing, which is great, but it's a long play. What I'm talking about is how do you go from zero to paid in a matter of weeks and months instead of months and years. So here's the keys to successful cold pitching. It's not just about templates. It's about positioning yourself correctly so they actually respond to your message, but it's also approaching cold pitching with the right mindset so that you don't give up, so that you don't get frustrated when you don't receive a few answers and you keep going, because this is a numbers game. This is a matter of how many pitches turn into conversations, how many conversations turn into a call, and how many of those calls turn into a paying writing opportunity. If we want to take it a step further, flash forward into the future, how many of those paid opportunities turn into recurring retainer work so that you're getting the equivalent of a paycheck? As freelancers, we don't get paychecks. We get these direct deposit payments. We get, these lump sums. But how do you get a client to like you so that they're giving you recurring work? That's the goal as a freelancer, is to not just do one-off projects and then wonder where your next client is coming from, your next project is coming from. It's to build relationships that have the client trusting you and wanting to do work with you month after month so that you have that stability. So what's underpinning all of this, and something you need to understand before you even begin cold pitching, is the mentality. It is the start before you're ready mentality, okay? This is huge. Don't underestimate that this is like just some fluffy Instagram quote off of Pinterest or whatever that says start before you're ready. No. This is actually really important. So trust me on this one. You need to take the leap instead of waiting for the perfect moment. This is what keeps a lot of freelancers stuck. Is like they're waiting for their ducks to get in a row. They're waiting for the chips to fall in the exact order for this they're waiting for the stars to align in a perfect order so that they can just finally begin this process. And I debunk a lot of the excuses that people think are, truly like, no, this is a really good reason why I can't start. I can debunk a lot of that. It's a lot of mental chatter. That's the value of talking to somebody else, is that once you hear your excuses out loud, you're like, wait, actually, that's not as big a deal as I thought it was. Think about it. While you're sitting there waiting, you're researching, you're not taking action, you're watching videos, you're reading blog posts, there's someone out there who's taking messy, imperfect action and taking those steps forward, and they're getting ahead of you. You have the same dream, but there's just two different approaches to go about it. Throw yourself in and take messy action, or wait until you feel that you're ready, which hint, usually never comes. Nobody feels ready to start this. They really have to throw themselves into it. I know I did. So think about it like this. What could you achieve if you started today? If you started this domino effect of just taking one action today toward your freelance writing dreams, where could you be in a week, a month, a year? You have to start before you're ready. Life is always going to be full of distractions and responsibilities and obligations. There's never going to be a good time to start. Here's the next tip for an effective cold pitch that actually gets responses. Choose your niche before you begin pitching so that your pitch gets responded to. Now, I'm talking about good pitches versus bad pitches. What makes a good pitch though? Well, part of it is having an effective pitch that doesn't sound spammy or robotic or whatever, but the second part of that is when they look at your pitch, let's say that you do capture their attention, what do they see when they go to investigate you further? In the world we're living in right now, nobody is going to respond to a cold pitch without doing some research on who this person is who sent them the message. Your message is never going to be enough. That's why it blows my mind that I get pitches that actually capture my attention, but then they leave no links to their website, no links to their social media profile. Yeah, this was a great message. Yes, this is something I probably needed, but I don't know who the heck you are. So I don't know where people learn these techniques from, where they send a compelling cold pitch and it does touch on my pain points, but then they don't say more about who they are and how I can do my own digging on them. But it's like sketchy. It's like, why are you not telling me where I can learn more about you? It's so weird. So my point being is that when you send that message, the next thing that this client is going to do is research you. They're going to look at your LinkedIn profile, your Instagram profile, whatever it is you're showing them, your website, your portfolio. They want to do their own digging before they respond to you. So you need to be positioned correctly. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're pitching, let's say, a personal trainer, you want to write a website or email nurture sequences for somebody in the fitness niche. So you reach out to your favorite Instagram influencer personal trainer. Well, when they go to your website, are they seeing work that looks like it could go well with their strategy. So if I'm an Instagram influencer and I'm constantly posting about macros and weightlifting and protein, when I go on a freelance writer's profile, I want to see samples and I want to see an entire presence built around protein and macros and weightlifting, because then what that does for me, it allows me to see that they understand what I do and my strategy, and they'll be able to write intelligently toward that audience. So properly positioning yourself and really having this hyper personalized online presence that appeals to your ideal client starts with you choosing your niche first, so that you're reaching out to a specific type of client that will resonate with your website. Niche choosing is something I'm really big on, okay? I know this is like highly debated in the freelance writing world, but I truly believe that people who are still telling writers that they don't need to choose a niche are operating from the way things used to be before this became super crowded and saturated. I don't believe it's saturated, but you know what I mean. It's very competitive. Let's not use saturated, let's use competitive. These are people who are probably operating and probably found their success when things were less competitive and before AI broke on the scene, okay? Right now, as you're watching this video, you have to understand that it's a competitive landscape. We're not working with a strong economy, so budgets have been slashed, people are being more selective, and if you don't stand out and if you don't cut through the noise, your chances of being able to get your foot in the door as a newbie, it really depends on whether or not you specialize or not, okay? So again, we'll go back to the title of this video about how to find clients fast. I'm not saying, oh, this is the only way if you don't choose a niche, you're never gonna get clients. Not saying that, but this strategy and my approach is about how to get from newbie to high paying opportunities in the least amount of time as possible. And you will cut through so many obstacles and delays and steps and time if you position yourself properly and choose a niche. Now, if you're wanting to know how to choose a niche, well, I created a free guide giving you a background on what the high paying niches are. So again, it's not just about choosing what we want to do and what we're interested in. We need to make sure that there's a demand for it, or else we're not going to make an income. So what I preach is to find something you're interested in, but look for companies that have big budgets who can actually invest in a good content writer, a good copywriter. Check out my free guide, it's linked below, and it'll help you see what niches are available, how hard they are to get into. So I worked really hard on that guide, and I definitely suggest you take a look at that free resource. The next step after you've chosen a niche is to have that dialed in online presence I spoke about earlier. Your social profiles, your website, your portfolio, all of that needs to tell a cohesive story about how you can help the client. Now, before people come to me and say, well, I didn't need a website, and don't bother with a website because that's just a time waster that's going to help you procrastinate even more. Yes, I understand that concept, because part of what I do in my course is urge writers to not tweak and obsess about their website, because it does become a procrastination device because it never feels like it's good enough. I get that. But please just think of it this way. Why would you send thousands of dollars a month to a company? Why would you invest in a premium service into a company that doesn't even have their own website? That would strike you as super sketchy. If you're doing business with someone online and they have an @gmail.com personal email, you begin to wonder, why have they not made enough money yet to the point where they can even invest in their own domain, which compared to the cost of starting a business, let's say like a brick and mortar or like something that actually requires an upfront investment, freelancing is the lowest barrier to entry. You need a few web hosting fees, maybe a Grammarly or LinkedIn Premium subscription monthly membership. Yes, you have to pay, but compared to what it actually costs to build a business for most people out there, this is like small peanuts. So I don't mean to be a snob and be like, why can't you afford a website? You need to just do the bare minimum to make yourself look professional, okay? So if you absolutely cannot invest in a domain, I would say use something like Copyfolio or some type of web service where it does make you look like you have a real website, as real as possible. But I would also question, like, if you're not willing to invest that small amount of money, how dedicated are you to this? There's affordable web hosting options out there for you. So I guess I would just wonder, like, if you really you can't create your own website, like, how dedicated are you in this? Because what we invest in and where we put our money shows what we care about, right? Granted, I know I have a really international audience. So if you're in like Kenya and Nigeria and you're like, Christine, you don't get it. we don't have the money, then yes, like go to a Copyfolio, go to something that is free, but you always know that your goal is to look as professional as possible to build trust. I also feel like if you have like a really dialed in online presence and you've built a following, okay, yeah, maybe you can just get away with like a free landing page, but I'm mostly speaking to newbies right now who are starting from scratch. They don't have an online presence and they're wondering how they can get started, and how to kind of shortcut the whole building an audience and building credibility online is to build your own website and build your own credibility, and that will cost you those web hosting fees. Now, here's the next step on how you speed this process up and get clients fast. It's to choose the right client acquisition method. Again, there are so many ways to land freelance clients, ways that I discuss on this channel, ways that I have a whole module on in my course. Like, here is all the different platforms and methods and ways you can acquire clients. But the point of this video is how to do this in the most direct way possible. So let me just give you the landscape. Here's a few different ways. There's applying to job boards. There's bidding on Upwork and freelance specific websites. There is starting a personal brand where you are consistently publishing content in the hopes that your ideal client finds your content and reaches out to you first. There is going to a networking event, business networking, even personal networking, and pitching your services to people you know. This is a great local approach. But out of all of these, cold pitching is the most effective because it gives you the most control. That was something we learned early on in sales, was that if we had a sales goal of $10,000 to $25,000, that was like my sales quota, my manager would sit down with me in the beginning of the month and say, here are your daily activity requirements. These daily activity requirements translate to a certain amount of discovery calls. Those discovery calls will, based on conversion rates, these discovery calls will translate to a certain amount of opportunities, and those opportunities in our CRM system will translate to a certain amount of booked business. And that was how you generated revenue for a company as a sales rep. So I took those same principles and broke that down for freelancers and show you, hey, here's how you can create your own little pipeline, right? You send a certain amount of cold pitches that are targeted to your ideal client. Those pitches start conversations, and conversations turn into calls, and calls turn into paying work, and paying work turns into recurring monthly retainer work. This is the best way for newbies, but it's also a way that freelancers who are currently working can ensure that their opportunities never dry up. So while you're working with clients, when you consistently send out a small amount of pitches per week, even when you're fully booked like I am, you will ensure that there's always someone in the pipeline to work with. Why I love this strategy too is that it allows you to proactively target the companies you would love to work for instead of waiting for them to come to you. Because I know as a newbie, the people in the tech space that I wanted to work for were not going to come knocking on my door as a new writer. I needed to build a list of like, hey, here's my 5 dream logos that I would love to have on my website. I'm going to proactively cold pitch them and get them to give me an opportunity. And what's so powerful about that is that once you get those logos on your website that build credibility, let's say you're in the health niche and you have like Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow's site, or maybe like a fitness brand like Peloton. Once you have something that carries that weight, you will have other lesser known fitness wellness companies reaching out to you because you've built that credibility. Because my income is not built on working for those huge Fortune 500 companies that are on the NASDAQ and have that really powerful brand logo power. It's the lesser known companies that see, oh, she's worked for that tech company, I know she can understand what we're doing here. And that credibility allows me to make an income on lesser known companies that are looking for my help. So that's the goal. Now, the key to quick results, to seeing results faster than most, is to go all in on one strategy and stop diluting your efforts. What I see a lot of freelancers do wrong is that they'll try cold pitching here, they'll dabble in that, then they'll go post on Instagram and try to create some brand awareness about themselves, then they'll send a few emails here. The most common thing I see is somebody sending 30 pitches in a day and then giving up and not approaching it again until a month later. So going all in on one strategy and staying consistent is a huge part of your results. This takes time and persistence. Why I was able to go from unemployed, complete newbie who had never been paid to write to landing my first client in 30 days was because I went all in on cold pitching in a specific niche. And that's why I love this message from Helen. She's a student of 30 Days to Paid, my online course, and she's a member of the Paid Writers community where she gets the support from myself and the other writers monthly. And something she said that I absolutely love is that while she's in between clients, she uses this strategy to pick up work when things fall off or get slower. It's a surefire go-to way of acquiring clients when you're in a pinch or when you need it, and it works. This is going to require you to fight shiny object syndrome, where you're consuming maybe YouTube videos or Instagram posts about the new hottest way to land clients, and then you completely shift your focus and start running after that instead. You need to fight that urge and say, no, I'm going to go all in on a strategy that I feel works, and I'm going to see it through and keep doing it until I get that result. Whether it's business, finance, this rule really has so many applications. I saw an Instagram reel the other day. I believe Rory Vaden was interviewing some guy talking about how to make a certain amount of money per year, how to bust past income plateaus. And he was like, this whole concept of needing multiple streams of income to become rich is so mistaken, because what people who are rich did was that they went all in on one thing, they got out of debt, they became financially solvent, and then they began investing and building wealth in other ways. But if you're just hustling and doing all these different jobs, thinking that, okay, this is my path to riches, it's like, no, we need that effort to be concentrated in one area until we see the results. Even with my online digital course business, paidcopywriter.com, there's a million ways I can be marketing this business. I could be getting on TikTok, I can be getting on Pinterest, I could be running Facebook ads. But what I found was that people were really connecting with my YouTube videos, and all of my traffic was coming from YouTube. So that's why I'm here right now recording YouTube videos, because I know that this is what works for my business. You really need to be surrounded by people who are going to motivate you when this does get hard too. That's why being part of a community, whether it's mine or another writing community, where you can actually bring your doubts, your hesitations, maybe you get rejected or somebody goes ghost on you when you thought it was going to be a great opportunity. Being able to bring that to a group of people, and for people to say, hey, this isn't just you, I've been there too, this is part of the game, that is invaluable. If you are not getting encouragement from someone to be persistent and to not give up and to keep going, you could let that discouragement tell you that this isn't for you when it really is. So that's part of why being in community is so, so important, because even just for me to be able to respond to other writers in my community and say, I got rejected too. This client wasn't happy with me, and here's how I dealt with it. When writers see the struggles that I deal with in my own business, and when I can normalize the quote unquote failures or setbacks as just part of the game, it just dulls the pain a little bit. It can create an environment of like, oh, I'm just going to get in the game because everybody's dealing with this, and we can just keep moving forward, and I can push past these obstacles and keep going. So in this video, we talked about the start before you're ready mentality. We talked about choosing a niche that's going to allow your pitches to stand out to your ideal freelance clients, and then having an online presence that's super dialed in. We also talked about choosing the right client acquisition strategy and going all in. And once you understand those principles, you are going to be ready to start cold pitching. Now, you might be wondering, well, how do I get started? Where do I get started? Which platforms are best? Do I choose cold emailing? What do you use, Christine? What's the best platform for this niche? So many questions, and that's what I want to answer for you in the next video. It's how do we take everything I just said right here and get you on the right platform, and give you the right strategy so that you can actually start pitching. I want to show you where you can begin doing that for the best results. So I will see you over in the next video.